Hey Reddit throwaway account for obvious reasons. I'm writing this because honestly I need to get it out. It's been a wild ride and looking back, it's almost like one of those stories you read and think no way that happened. But it did to me. I'm Alex, 28, a software developer who's always prided himself on being the steady guy, the one who shows up, pays the bills, and builds a future. And Sarah, well, she was my girlfriend of 3 years. Or at least I thought she was building that future with me. We met back in college at a mutual friend's party. She was this vibrant, outgoing art major who lit up the room with her laugh. I was the quiet engineering student in the corner, nursing a beer and trying not to spill it on my laptop. Somehow we clicked. She said I grounded her, made her feel safe. I fell hard. The first year was incredible, the kind of relationship that made me believe in soulmates. We'd stay up until 3 in the morning talking about everything and nothing. She'd sketch while I coded, sitting in comfortable silence in her dorm room. She introduced me to art galleries and indie music. I took her to science museums and taught her basic programming. We complemented each other perfectly, or so I thought. After graduation, when she struggled to find steady work in her field, bouncing between freelance gigs and waitressing, I stepped up. I got a solid job at a tech firm, nothing glamorous but it paid well, and we moved in together into a cozy apartment in the city. 2 bedrooms, one we converted into her art studio. I covered most of the rent so she could focus on her passion projects, painting, photography, whatever sparked her that week. I didn't mind. I loved seeing her happy, watching her create. I thought we were building something together. At first, it was great. I'd come home from long coding sessions and she'd have dinner ready, or we'd binge watch shows curled up on the couch with our rescue cat Milo. She'd show me her latest paintings and I'd genuinely be in awe of her talent. We talked about the future, marriage, maybe kids someday, buying a house with a bigger studio for her. I was all in. I started saving aggressively, putting away money each month into a down payment fund. I even started looking at engagement rings during my lunch breaks, imagining the perfect proposal. But over time, things shifted in ways I didn't want to acknowledge. Sarah started going out more, girls' nights that turned into all-nighters. She'd come back smelling like smoke and cheap cocktails, crashing into bed without a word. At first, I didn't mind. Everyone needs space, right? I'd encourage it even. Go have fun, I'd say. You deserve a break. You work so hard. I thought I was being supportive, the understanding boyfriend. But the nights out became more frequent. Once a week turned into 3 times a week, then almost every night. The complaints started subtle. Why don't you ever want to go out? She'd ask over breakfast after another late night. You're always working or on your computer. Don't you want to have fun? I'd explain that I was working toward our future, that someone had to be responsible. She'd roll her eyes and go back to her phone. Then came the comparison. Why can't you loosen up like my friends? She'd say during arguments. You're always so predictable. It stung, but I brushed it off. I loved her. I thought we were a team. I thought my stability was what she valued about me. I remember trying to spice things up. I'd plan surprise date nights, make reservations at nice restaurants, buy tickets to art shows I thought she'd love. Half the time she'd cancel last minute. Sorry babe, the girls really need me tonight, she'd text. Rain check. The rain check never came. I'd sit alone at the restaurant, eventually learning to just cancel the reservations myself. I suggested couples activities, cooking classes, weekend getaways. She'd agree enthusiastically, then find reasons to back out. I'm too tired, she'd say. Or that sounds boring, can't we do something more exciting? Flashback to about 6 months before everything fell apart. That's when Jake entered the picture, or rather when I finally noticed him. I'd heard his name before, scattered mentions here and there, but suddenly he was everywhere. Jake said this, Jake did that, you should hear Jake's new DJ mix. Jake was the bartender at the place she waitressed part-time, some trendy spot downtown with exposed brick and overpriced cocktails. Always posting shirtless gym selfies online, the kind of guy who thrived on attention. I'd met him a few times when I'd pick Sarah up from work. He had that casual confidence, the easy charm, the kind of guy who could talk to anyone about anything. He'd give me this knowing smirk when he saw me, like we were sharing some private joke I wasn't in on. I tried not to be that guy, the jealous, insecure boyfriend. I trusted Sarah. She'd never given me a reason not to, or so I told myself. But something about how Sarah lit up when she talked about Jake made my gut twist in ways I couldn't ignore. She'd be scrolling through her phone, laughing at something, and when I'd ask what was funny, she'd say, oh, just something Jake sent. When I'd look over her shoulder, she'd angle the phone away. Nothing, just an inside joke, you wouldn't get it. Those words stung more than she knew. The texts became constant. Her phone would buzz at all hours, during dinner, during movies, during the rare moments we were intimate. She'd check it immediately every time, typing back with this little smile on her face. When I'd comment on it, she'd get defensive. I'm allowed to have friends, Alex. Stop being so controlling. Controlling. That word became her weapon of choice. Anytime I expressed discomfort, any boundary I tried to set, I was being controlling. I remember one night vividly, about 4 months before the end. It was a Tuesday, middle of the week. I just pulled an all-nighter fixing a critical bug for a big client deadline. Exhausted, I got home around 8 in the morning ready to crash. Sarah was already up, which was unusual. She was never a morning person. But there she was, dolled up at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, scrolling through her phone at the kitchen table. Full makeup, hair done, wearing this tight black dress I'd never seen before. Where are you going? I asked, confused. She barely looked up. Oh, I'm heading out with some friends tonight, just planning it now. Tonight, I repeated, it's Tuesday, and she said, her tone challenging. I just got off a 20-hour shift, I said, trying not to sound as frustrated as I felt. I was hoping we could spend some time together. I haven't seen you in days. She sighed dramatically like I was asking her to move mountains. Alex, I already made plans. Jake's DJing at this new club downtown, and a bunch of us are going. You should come if you're so worried about spending time together. I hesitated. Clubs weren't my scene. The crowds, the noise, the overpriced watered-down drinks. After 20 hours of debugging code, the last thing I wanted was to be surrounded by drunk strangers and music so loud I couldn't hear myself think. But more than that, I didn't like how cozy she was getting with Jake. I'd seen the text pop up on her phone when she left it on the counter. Emojis, inside jokes, good morning texts that came before I was even awake. I'm just worried, I admitted, trying to choose my words carefully. You and Jake seem really close lately. Is there something I should know? That's when it escalated. She spun around, her expression shifting from annoyed to genuinely angry. Worried about what, Alex? That I'm having fun without you. Jake's just a friend. He gets me. He lives life. He doesn't sit around coding all day and complaining about being tired. The words hit like a slap. I felt a pain in my chest, sharp and sudden, but I stayed calm. I had to be the reasonable one. I'm not trying to control you, Sarah. I just feel like we're drifting. You've been out every weekend for the past 2 months, and when you're home, you're on your phone. It makes me feel like I'm not enough, like I'm not part of your life anymore. She laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound that cut deeper than any argument we'd ever had. Not enough. Maybe you're right, Alex. If you don't like how I live my life, leave. I'm not changing for anyone. I'm young. I want excitement, not this boring routine. Jake invites me out because he knows how to have fun. If you're jealous, that's on you. Deal with your insecurities. Her words hung in the air like a slap I couldn't dodge. I stood there, stunned into silence, as she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. It was 8:30 in the morning, and she was already leaving for a club that wouldn't open for another 12 hours. Don't wait up, she tossed over her shoulder with a smirk. I'll be back late. The door slammed shut, and I was left standing in our kitchen, feeling like a stranger in my own home. I didn't beg, I didn't yell, I didn't chase after her. Something inside me just clicked off, like a switch I'd been desperately trying to keep on finally gave out. For months, I'd been pouring everything into us. I'd been skipping happy hours with coworkers to be home for her, just in case she wanted to spend time together. I turned down a promotion that would have meant relocating to Seattle because she didn't want to move. I'd been paying 70% of our bills while she worked part-time and pursued her art. I'd been supportive, patient, understanding. And this was what I got, dismissed like a nagging parent whose rules were too strict. I sat on the couch for a long time after she left, just staring at the wall. Milo jumped up next to me, purring and rubbing against my arm, sensing something was wrong. I scratched behind his ears absently, my mind racing. The confusion hit hard, waves of it crashing over me. Why was I the villain for wanting stability, for loving her enough to build something real? I thought about all the times I'd sacrificed, all the little moments that added up to this terrible realization that I'd been giving everything and receiving nothing. There was the weekend trip to visit my parents I'd canceled because Sarah had a crisis at work, only to find out later through her Instagram that she'd gone to a music festival with friends instead. The birthday dinner I'd planned for her, where I'd invited all her friends, and she'd spent the entire night on her phone texting Jake, barely acknowledging the expensive meal I'd saved up for. The way she'd post photos online of her nights out, captioning them living my best life while I was home alone, wondering if I fit into that life anymore. I thought about the ring I'd been saving for, hidden in my sock drawer. 3 months' salary, just like they say you're supposed to spend. I'd been planning to propose on our 4-year anniversary, which was coming up in 2 months. I'd already talked to her father, old-fashioned as that was. He'd given me his blessing, seemed genuinely happy about it. What a joke that seemed now. But that night, her words echoed in my head like a broken record. If you don't like how I live my life, leave. Fine, I would. I didn't make the decision in anger. I made it in clarity. I sat there for another hour, thinking it through rationally, logically, the way I approach problems at work. I listed out the facts in my head. She was emotionally checked out of our relationship. She prioritized her social life over our partnership. She dismissed my feelings and concerns as jealousy and insecurity. She was at minimum emotionally involved with another man. She'd explicitly told me to leave if I didn't like it. The conclusion was obvious. Around 10 a.m., I stood up and started packing. Methodically, quietly, I went through our apartment and separated my life from hers. My clothes from the closet, carefully folding each item and placing it in the suitcases I'd bought for our trip to Hawaii that never happened because she wanted to go to Coachella with her friends instead. My books from the shelves, the programming textbooks and sci-fi novels that she'd always made fun of. The few gadgets that were mine, my gaming console, my laptop, my tablet, I left her stuff untouched. The paintings on the walls, the knickknacks she'd collected from thrift stores, all the boho decorative pillows she insisted made the place feel artistic. I didn't want to fight over petty things. I didn't want to fight at all. I just wanted out. I even left the shared furniture, the couch we'd picked out together at IKEA on a rare good day, the dining table her parents had given us as a housewarming gift. I'd bought most of it, but I didn't care. Material things could be replaced. My peace of mind couldn't. The only thing I debated over was Milo. We'd adopted him together, but I'd been the one who fed him, took him to the vet, cleaned his litter box. Sarah barely acknowledged him unless she wanted a cute photo for Instagram. I put him in his carrier. He was coming with me. By midnight, my car was loaded. Everything I owned packed into my Honda Civic, which suddenly seemed too small for the life I was carrying away. I did one final walkthrough of the apartment, making sure I hadn't forgotten anything important. In our bedroom, I saw the framed photo on the nightstand from our second anniversary. We looked so happy. I looked so naive. I left it there, face down. In her studio, half-finished paintings leaned against the walls. I'd encouraged every single one, even when she'd get frustrated and want to give up. I told her she was talented, that she just needed to keep trying. I wondered if Jake gave her the same encouragement or if he just gave her the excitement she craved. I sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out a sticky note from the pad we used for grocery lists. For a moment, I considered writing more, explaining everything, laying out all the ways she'd hurt me, all the sacrifices I'd made, all the love I'd given that she'd thrown back in my face. But what was the point? She'd made her choice. She told me explicitly what to do, so I kept it simple. I wrote in clear block letters, "You're right. I don't like it, so I left. Take care." No drama, no accusations, just detachment, just the truth. I stuck it to the fridge where I knew she'd see it first thing, right next to the photo strip from a photo booth at the county fair last summer. In those tiny pictures, we looked like people in love. Maybe we had been once. I took one last look around the apartment that had been our home for 2 years. The kitchen where we cooked together on lazy Sundays. The living room where we'd watched entire seasons of shows in single sittings. The bedroom where we talked about our future until we fell asleep in each other's arms. All of it felt like a museum now, a collection of memories from someone else's life. I grabbed the note I'd written, placed it on the kitchen counter next to her coffee maker, and walked out. I locked the door with my key for the last time, then slid that key under the door. No going back. I drove for 2 hours in the dark, heading to my buddy Marcus's place across the state. Marcus and I had been friends since college, roommates freshman year before he'd transferred schools. He'd offered his couch any time after listening to me vent about Sarah's behavior for months. "You're too good for her, man," he'd said repeatedly. I hadn't believed him. I thought I just needed to try harder, be better, give more. Now, driving through the empty highways with Milo meowing anxiously in his carrier in the passenger seat, I finally understood what Marcus had been trying to tell me. I arrived at Marcus's apartment complex around 2:30 a.m. I texted him that I was here and he came down in sweatpants and a t-shirt looking concerned. "You actually did it," he said, not quite a question. "I actually did it," I confirmed. He helped me unload the car without asking questions, making trips up to his third-floor walk-up with boxes and bags. We got Milo settled with a makeshift litter box in the bathroom and some food and water. Then Marcus cracked open 2 beers and we sat on his couch in silence for a while. "Want to talk about it?" he finally asked. "Not yet," I said. He nodded and turned on the TV, something mindless and late night. I crashed on his couch, still in my clothes, too exhausted to even brush my teeth. My phone was on silent, face down on the coffee table. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of peace amid the hurt. I'd made a decision. I'd acted on it. I hadn't been talked out of it, hadn't second-guessed myself, hadn't let guilt or fear or love override what I knew I needed to do. I slept better that night on Marcus's lumpy couch than I had in months in my own bed. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through Marcus's blinds. It was already 11 a.m. I never slept that late. My body had finally gotten the rest it had been desperate for. Marcus was already up, sitting at his small kitchen table with coffee and his laptop. "I made coffee," he said, gesturing to the pot. "And there's bagels in the pantry. Help yourself." I poured myself a cup and sat across from him. My phone was still face down where I'd left it. I knew I should check it, but I was dreading what I'd find. "You should probably look at that," Marcus said gently, nodding at my phone. "Whatever's on there, you need to face it." He was right. I picked up my phone and turned it over. The screen lit up with notifications. 63 missed calls from Sarah, 47 text messages, 3 voicemails. My stomach churned, but I started reading. The messages had started around 3:15 a.m., right when she would have gotten home. "Where are you? Why is the apartment half empty? Alex, call me. This isn't funny. Are you serious right now? You packed up and left. Over what? Call me now." I scrolled through them, watching her emotional progression play out in text form. Confusion, anger, panic, manipulation, more anger. The messages got increasingly unhinged as the night went on. "You're being ridiculous. You're acting like a child. How dare you just leave without talking to me? This is emotional abuse. You can't just abandon someone like this. Fine, ignore me. You'll come crawling back. You need me more than I need you." The voicemails were worse. I put my phone on speaker so Marcus could hear. The first one was from 3:30 a.m., her voice sharp with anger. "Alex, what the hell? I come home at 3 in the morning and the place is half empty. Your stuff's gone, Milo's gone, and that pathetic little note. Are you serious? You packed up and left because I went out. You're acting insane. Call me back right now so we can talk about this like adults." The second voicemail from 4 a.m. was different. Her voice was softer, manipulative. "Baby, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings earlier. I didn't mean it. You know how I get when I'm frustrated. Come back and we can talk about this. I miss you. Milo probably misses home. Don't do this to us. The third voicemail from 6 a.m. was pure desperation mixed with anger. Fine, Alex, fine. If you want to throw away 3 years over nothing, that's on you. I didn't do anything wrong. Jake and I are just friends. We were just dancing, having fun. You're so insecure you can't handle me having a life outside of you. You know what? Maybe this is better. Maybe I don't need someone who's going to try to control who I hang out with. But you better call me back about the apartment. Your name is on the lease too. You can't just leave me with all the bills. Call me. Marcus let out a low whistle. She's something else, man. I felt numb listening to them. No apology, no accountability, just justifications and blame shifting and threats about the bills. Everything was my fault. My insecurity, my controlling behavior, my overreaction. She'd gone out with another man against my explicit discomfort, come home at 3 a.m., and somehow I was the villain in her story. The confusion I'd felt last night started to fade, replaced by clarity that was almost painful in its sharpness. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat there with Marcus, drinking coffee and trying to process the end of my relationship. The apartment, I said eventually. My name is on the lease, I know, Marcus said. You could stick her with it, make her deal with the landlord, but that seems messy. Or you could be the bigger person. I thought about it. The lease was up in 4 months. I could afford to pay my half for 4 more months if it meant a clean break. I'll keep paying my portion until the lease ends, I decided. I don't want her having any reason to contact me or claim I screwed her over. I'll set up automatic payments. Marcus nodded approvingly. Smart. Cut off all the angles she might use to pull you back in. Around noon, Sarah started calling from different numbers. She must have realized I'd sent her calls to voicemail. I'd answer, she'd start talking, and I'd hang up immediately. This happened 4 times before I finally picked up and let her speak. My voice was steady, emotionless, no trace of the storm inside. What do you want, Sarah? Alex, thank God, she burst out, her tone a mix of shock and anger. We need to talk about this. You can't just leave in the middle of the night like a coward. Come back and we'll work this out. There's nothing to work out, I said calmly. We're done. She sounded genuinely shocked, like this hadn't occurred to her as a possibility. Alex, this is ridiculous. You packed up and left because I went out. You're acting like a child. I came home and half our apartment is empty. You took Milo. You left a note like we're strangers. This is insane. You told me if I didn't like how you lived your life, I should leave. I reminded her. So I did. I don't like it, so I left. That's what you wanted. I didn't mean it literally, she said, her voice rising. That's how people talk when they're arguing. You don't just actually do it. You're supposed to fight for us, not run away at the first sign of conflict. First sign of conflict. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Sarah, we've been having the same fight for 6 months. You go out constantly, you're always on your phone with Jake, and every time I try to talk about how it makes me feel, you call me controlling. This isn't the first sign of conflict. This is me finally accepting that you don't want the same relationship I do. There was a pause, then her voice shifted to that manipulative softness again. Okay, fine, maybe I've been distant, but relationships have ups and downs, Alex. You can't just bail without really trying to fix things. Jake's fun, yeah, but he's not you. You're the stable one, the one I come home to. Don't you get that? I need both. Excitement and security. That's normal. Everyone experiments. If you're insecure about it, that's your issue. Come back and we can work it out. I'll cut back on going out. I almost laughed at the hypocrisy. She wanted me as the safety net while she lived her life. No apologies, just justifications and half promises she'd never keep. No, Sarah, we're done. I deserve better than being your backup plan. Backup? That's not fair. You're twisting everything. Her voice was getting angry again. Jake gets that life isn't all serious. He doesn't judge me for wanting fun. He understands that being in a relationship doesn't mean giving up who you are. If you loved me, you'd fight for us, not run away like a coward. The word coward stung, but I didn't take the bait. Goodbye, Sarah. I hung up. She called back immediately. I blocked her number. She called from another number. I blocked that too. After the 5th different number, I stopped answering unknown calls. The days after blurred into a haze of processing and grieving. I crashed on Marcus's couch, staring at the ceiling during the long nights, replaying every sacrifice I'd made. There was the time I'd loaned her $800 for art supplies and a new easel, only for her to blow it on a weekend trip to Vegas with friends. Jake had been on that trip, I realized now, looking back at her Instagram photos from that weekend. There he was in the background of multiple shots, his arm around her shoulders in one. I'd been so trusting I hadn't even questioned it. By the time she'd posted vague, disrespectful things online, memes about boring boyfriends who don't know how to have fun. Her followers would laugh and comment, tagging their own boyfriends. I'd see them and feel a twist in my stomach, but I'd never said anything. I pretended not to notice, not to be hurt. I'd convinced myself she was just venting, that it didn't mean anything. Now I saw it for what it was, public humiliation, a way to make herself look cool and adventurous at my expense. It felt so undeserved, so profoundly unfair. I'd been loyal, committed, supportive. I'd encouraged her art when she wanted to give up. I'd covered bills when she was short. I'd been patient when she was moody. I'd given her space when she asked for it. And for what? To be discarded like yesterday's news, like a worn-out piece of furniture she got tired of looking at. I didn't confront her or lash out. I didn't post angry rants online or try to turn our mutual friends against her. Instead, I focused on me. I got a cheap motel room for a week while I looked for something more permanent, keeping Milo with me the whole time. Then I found a sublet in a city a few hours away, a studio apartment that was small but clean and mine. I transferred within my company to a branch in the new city. No promotion needed, just a fresh start. My manager was surprisingly understanding when I explained I needed a change for personal reasons. "We're sorry to see you go," she said, "but I get it. Sometimes you need a clean slate." The transfer was approved within a week. I packed up my stuff from Marcus's place, thanked him profusely for his support, and moved into my new studio. It was bare, just a bed, a desk, and a small kitchen. But it was peaceful, no memories, no ghosts, just possibility. I threw myself into rebuilding. I hit the gym for the first time in years, working out the anger and hurt through weights and cardio. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with while prioritizing Sarah's needs. I even started therapy to unpack the confusion that still lingered. Why had I let myself be mistreated for so long? Why had I ignored so many red flags? My therapist, Dr. Chen, was patient and insightful. She helped me see the patterns I'd fallen into, the people-pleasing and conflict avoidance that had made me an easy target for someone like Sarah. "You weren't the problem," Dr. Chen told me in one session. "Her entitlement was. Her inability to appreciate what she had, her need for constant external validation. Those are her issues, not deficiencies in you." But I stayed, I argued. I saw the signs and I stayed. "Why? Because you loved her," Dr. Chen said simply. "Because you believed in the relationship you thought you had. That's not weakness, Alex, that's hope. But now you know better, now you can choose differently." The sessions helped more than I expected. Slowly the self-blame faded. I started to see myself more clearly, not as the boring, controlling boyfriend Sarah had painted me as, but as a decent guy who'd given his all to someone who didn't value it. The silence was deafening at first, but slowly it turned into clarity. I wasn't the problem, her entitlement was. Her inability to commit, her need for constant excitement at the expense of genuine connection. I could breathe again. Meanwhile, through the grapevine of mutual friends, I started hearing bits about Sarah's life post-breakup, though I didn't ask for updates. I'd made it clear to everyone that I wanted a clean break, no drama, no taking sides. Most of our mutual friends respected that, but some couldn't help themselves. They dropped little comments, unable to resist sharing the gossip. At first I shut them down. "I don't want to know," I'd say. "That's her life now, not mine." But human nature being what it is, some details slipped through. Marcus would occasionally mention things he'd heard, not to gossip but to keep me informed in case it affected me. Apparently Sarah had immediately started spinning her version of events. I was the controlling jerk who'd abandoned her over nothing. She was the victim, the free spirit whose boyfriend couldn't handle her having friends. She'd cry to anyone who'd listen about how she'd come home to find me gone, how traumatic it was, how she never saw it coming. Some people bought it. Sarah was charismatic and convincing, especially to people who didn't know the full story. A crack started showing in her narrative pretty quickly. People who knew us both started asking questions. If Alex was so controlling, why did he let you go out all the time? If he was so terrible, why did he support you financially for 2 years? Why did he leave so quietly instead of making a scene? Sarah's answers got increasingly defensive and contradictory. She'd blocked me on everything, Marcus told me about 2 weeks after I'd left, but she's posting about you constantly. Vague stuff about toxic relationships and finding yourself. The comments are mostly supportive, but some people are pushing back. I didn't look at her social media. I blocked her on everything and I intended to keep it that way. I didn't need to know what she was saying. I knew the truth and so did the people who mattered. But then Marcus told me something that made my blood run cold. "She's with Jake now," he said carefully, watching my reaction, like officially with him. "They're not hiding it anymore." I felt a twist in my gut, but not surprise. Deep down, I'd known, of course she was with Jake. She probably had been for months before I left. "How long after I left?" I asked, needing to know. "Like immediately," Marcus said. "She posted a photo with him the next weekend. Caption was something about finding someone who celebrates you instead of stifling you. Pretty sure she's been staying at his place." That fast, I'd left, and within a week she moved on publicly, shamelessly. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt vindicated. I'd been right to trust my gut. There had been something going on with Jake, and now I had confirmation. Over the next few weeks, I heard more. Sarah had quit her waitressing job, convinced that Jake's connections in the nightlife scene would land her something better, some vague opportunity in the art world that never materialized. She'd moved in with him impulsively, leaving our old apartment before the lease was up. I had to cover her portion of the rent for the remaining months, which I'd expected and budgeted for. Small price for freedom. They were living in Jake's rundown place downtown, a studio apartment above a bar that I'd seen once when I picked Sarah up from a party. It had been loud, dirty, and smelled like stale beer. Not exactly the upgrade she probably imagined. But the honeymoon phase didn't last long. Through Marcus's continued updates, which I told him to stop sharing but he ignored, I learned that Jake wasn't the dream guy Sarah had painted him as. Turns out he was unstable, bouncing from one gig to another, partying hard every night, and he had a temper. A mutual friend, Jessica, who'd stayed neutral in the breakup, couldn't resist calling me one night about a month after I'd left. "Alex, I know you don't want to hear this, but I thought you should know. Sarah's in a bad situation." I considered hanging up, but curiosity got the better of me. "What kind of situation?" "Jake's not a good guy," Jessica said, her voice worried. "He's got a string of exes who all have similar stories. He's charming at first, the life of the party, but when things get real he gets mean. Verbally abusive, controlling, unfaithful. Sarah's already posting cryptic stuff about relationship struggles and it's only been a month. I know you guys broke up badly, but she was your girlfriend for 3 years. I thought you'd want to know. I appreciate the concern, Jessica, I said carefully, but Sarah made her choice. She's an adult. If she's in a bad situation, she needs to get herself out of it. That's not my responsibility anymore. But Alex, Jessica pressed. What if he hurts her? Then she should call the police, I said firmly. I'm not her savior, Jessica. I tried to be her partner and she threw it back in my face. I'm done, Jessica sighed. I get it. I just feel bad for her. Don't, I said, and I meant. She created this situation. She chose Jake over stability, over honesty, over me. Now she gets to live with that choice. After I hung up, I felt a pang of something, not quite guilt, but close. Was I being cold? Should I care more? But then I remembered Sarah's words. If you don't like how I live my life, leave. I'd left. She'd moved on immediately. Her life wasn't my problem anymore. I had to protect my own peace, my own mental health. Getting involved would just pull me back into the drama I'd worked so hard to escape. So I didn't reach out. I didn't check on her. I focused on my new life. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into projects, staying late at the office, volunteering for the challenging assignments no one else wanted. My new team appreciated my dedication. Within 2 months, I'd earned a reputation as reliable and skilled. My manager pulled me aside one day. Alex, I don't know what you're running from, but whatever it is, it's making you one of our best developers. Keep it up and there's a promotion in your future. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I was running towards something better. I joined a hiking group through Meetup, something I'd always wanted to do but Sarah had never been interested in. Too much effort, she'd say. Why walk uphill for hours when you could just look at pictures? But I loved it. The physical challenge, the fresh air, the sense of accomplishment when you reach the summit. I made new friends in the group, people who valued the same things I did: effort, persistence, natural beauty. They didn't know anything about my past relationship drama. To them, I was just Alex, the quiet software developer who could keep pace on steep trails and always brought good snacks. I started dating casually after about 3 months. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and dinners with women I met through apps or mutual friends. It was strange at first, being single after so long, having to relearn how to make small talk and gauge interest, but it was also freeing. I wasn't tied down to someone who made me feel inadequate. I could just be myself, and if someone didn't like it, that was okay. There was no pressure, no timeline, no desperation. I was actually enjoying being single for the first time since college. One woman, Rachel, I saw for about a month. She was a graphic designer, creative like Sarah, but grounded in a way Sarah never was. She had her own apartment, paid her own bills, didn't expect me to fund her lifestyle. We had good conversations, similar values, compatible lifestyles. But after a few weeks, I realized I wasn't feeling it. The spark wasn't there, so I told her honestly and respectfully. Rachel, I really enjoy spending time with you, but I'm not feeling a romantic connection. I don't want to waste your time. She appreciated the honesty. We parted as friends. No drama, no hard feelings. It was refreshingly adult. The internal fog that had clouded my judgment during my relationship with Sarah was clearing day by day. I wasn't confused anymore about what I wanted or what I deserved. I wanted a partner, not a dependent. I wanted honesty, not games. I wanted someone who added to my life instead of draining from it. I wanted mutual respect, effort, and genuine affection. These weren't unreasonable expectations. They were basic requirements for a healthy relationship. Sarah had made me feel like I was asking for too much by wanting these things. Now I knew better. About 4 months after I left, the real karma started rolling in for Sarah. I only knew this because Marcus finally dropped a bombshell I couldn't ignore. Dude, I know you don't want to hear about Sarah, but this is too crazy not to tell you. She's completely imploded. I sighed. Marcus, I told you I don't want updates. I know, but just hear me out. This affects you. She's been trying to get in touch with you. How? I asked, immediately concerned. I blocked her on everything. She tried calling your work, Marcus said. Called the main line at your old office asking for you. When they said you transferred, she tried to get them to give her your new location. They wouldn't, obviously, but she's persistent. Why is she trying to reach me? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew the answer. Because everything fell apart with Jake, Marcus said. He dumped her, and she's in bad shape. No job, no apartment, no money. She's been couch surfing, staying with different friends, but she's burning those bridges fast. People are getting fed up with her. She's desperate, Alex. And when people get desperate, they go back to what's safe. You're safe. I'm not safe anymore, I said firmly. I'm gone. If she's in trouble, that's not my problem. Marcus filled me in on the details I hadn't asked for but probably needed to know for my own protection. After Sarah moved in with Jake, things went downhill fast. Jake was exactly the kind of guy I'd worried he was, charming and fun on the surface but toxic underneath. He was still seeing other women while Sarah was living with him. She'd find evidence, confront him, and he'd flip it on her. You're too clingy, he'd say. We never agreed to be exclusive, you assumed. It would drive Sarah crazy, which was probably his intention. They'd fight constantly, loud screaming matches that the neighbors complained about. Jake had punched a hole in the wall during one argument. Another time he'd thrown Sarah's phone across the room, shattering it because she'd accused him of texting another woman. She'd called the cops once, but when they showed up, she downplayed it. Just a domestic dispute, she'd said. We're fine. The cops left. Jake was furious that she'd called them, threatened to kick her out. She begged him not to, promising to be less jealous, less demanding. The dynamic was toxic and getting worse. Finally, about 3.5 months after they'd got together, Jake ended it. He'd met someone new, a younger woman who worked at one of the clubs he DJ'd at. Just dropped the bomb on Sarah one night. "I'm done with this," he'd said. "You're exhausting. I need someone who's fun, not someone who's constantly paranoid and starting fights. Pack your stuff and get out." Sarah was devastated. She'd given up her apartment, her job, her stability for him. She had nowhere to go. She'd tried staying with her sister first, her younger sister Emily, who lived about an hour away. Emily had always been the more practical sibling, the one with a steady job and a mortgage and a husband. But Emily had never liked Sarah's choices, and she especially hadn't liked how Sarah treated me. "Alex was good to you," Emily had told Sarah bluntly. "You threw away a good man for some loser bartender. This is your own fault." Sarah could stay for a week, Emily said, but then she needed to figure out her life. That week turned into 2, then 3. Sarah wasn't looking for work, wasn't looking for an apartment. She was wallowing, spending her days on the couch, scrolling through social media, posting vague inspirational quotes about betrayal and growth. Emily's husband, Tom, finally put his foot down. "She needs to leave," he told Emily. "I'm not supporting another adult who won't help herself." Emily agreed. They gave Sarah a deadline, 2 weeks to find a job in a place or she had to leave. Sarah didn't meet the deadline. She'd applied to a few places half-heartedly, but nothing came through. Emily and Tom stuck to their guns. Sarah had to leave. That's when she started couch surfing, bouncing between different friends' places, wearing out her welcome at each one. She'd stay with someone for a few days, promising it was temporary, then overstay and create drama. She'd eat their food, use their stuff, leave messes, all while complaining about her situation but doing nothing to improve it. One by one, friends stopped answering her calls. Her social circle, once large and active, shrank to almost nothing. People were tired of the drama, tired of the manipulation, tired of being used. And that's when she started trying to reach me. Marcus showed me screenshots that mutual friends had sent him. Sarah had been posting about me again, not by name but obviously about me. Vague posts about regretting losing someone who truly loved her, about realizing too late what you had, about wanting to apologize to someone who deserved better. The posts were getting likes and sympathetic comments from people who didn't know the full story. Some people who did know were commenting more critically. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you cheated," one person wrote. Sarah had deleted that comment and blocked the user. She tried reaching out to my parents, I found out later. My mom called me confused and concerned. "Alex, honey, Sarah called me today. She was crying, saying she made a terrible mistake and needs to talk to you. She asked for your new address. I didn't give it to her. I figured there was a reason you didn't tell her." I felt a surge of gratitude for my mom's intuition. "Thanks, Mom. Yeah, we broke up a few months ago. It wasn't a good situation. I don't want her to have my information." "Your father and I always liked Sarah," my mom said carefully, "but we like you more. If you don't want to talk to her, you don't have to. We'll support whatever you decide." The attempts peaked over the next few weeks. Sarah tried everything. She created new social media accounts to get around my blocks, sending me messages that I'd see the preview of before blocking the new account. "Alex, please, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Jake was nothing. You were everything. I see that now. Can we please just talk?" I ignored every single one. She tried emailing me at my work email, which she must have guessed based on my company's format. I set up a filter to automatically delete anything from her. She sent me a letter to my old apartment. The new tenant, being a decent person, forwarded it to my parents' house thinking it might be important. My dad texted me, "Got a letter here for you from Sarah. Want me to send it or trash it?" "Trash it," I replied. "Don't even open it." My resolve was steel at this point. I'd built a new life, a good life, a peaceful life. I wasn't going back to the chaos and drama. Sarah had made her choice. She'd chosen excitement over stability, Jake over me, her wants over our relationship. Now she was facing the consequences of those choices and wanted me to rescue her. But I wasn't a safety net. I wasn't a backup plan. I was a person who deserved better, and I'd found better, or at least I was on my way to it. Around the 6-month mark, I met someone who actually made me reconsider my casual dating approach. Her name was Emily, which was funny because that was also Sarah's sister's name, but she was nothing like either of them. Emily was a 3rd-grade teacher, patient and kind and genuinely passionate about her work. We met at a bookstore, both reaching for the same science fiction novel. We laughed about it, got coffee to discuss the book, and ended up talking for 3 hours. She was refreshingly straightforward. No games, no manipulation, no hidden agendas, just honest conversation and genuine interest. Our first official date was dinner at a small Italian place. She insisted on splitting the check. "I'm not looking for someone to take care of me financially," she said with a smile. "I make my own money. I just want someone to share experiences with." It was such a stark contrast to Sarah, who'd always expected me to pay for everything and made me feel cheap if I ever suggested splitting costs. Emily and I started seeing each other regularly. She respected my time and boundaries. If I needed to work late, she understood. If she had papers to grade, I understood. We balanced our individual lives with our growing relationship. It felt healthy in a way I'd forgotten relationships could feel. About 3 weeks into dating Emily, I told her about Sarah. Not all the details, but the broad strokes. I was in a relationship for 3 years that ended badly, I explained over coffee. She was unfaithful, emotionally at least, probably physically. I found out she was prioritizing another guy over our relationship. When I confronted her about it, she told me if I didn't like it, I should leave. So I did. Emily listened without judgment. How do you feel about it now? She asked, honestly. I feel free, I said. I gave everything to that relationship and got nothing back. Being out of it, I can see how unhealthy it was. I'm still working through some of it in therapy, but I'm in a much better place. Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm glad it taught you what you won't tolerate. That's valuable. For the record, I would never do that to someone I cared about. If I'm not happy, I'll say so. If I'm interested in someone else, I'll end things first. You deserve honesty and respect, and that's what I'll give you. Hearing those words from someone I was starting to care about meant more than I could express. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. That means a lot. Emily and I continued to grow closer over the following months. She met my friends and they loved her. She's good for you, Marcus said after meeting her for the first time. You seem lighter, you smile more, it's good to see. I met her friends too, a group of teachers who were warm and welcoming. They treated me like I'd always been part of their circle. This was what a healthy relationship looked like. Mutual friends, mutual respect, mutual effort. Sarah had isolated me from my friends and monopolized my time. Emily encouraged me to maintain my friendships and hobbies. She'd join my hiking group sometimes, other times she'd encourage me to go without her while she did her own things. We were two whole people choosing to share our lives, not two halves desperately clinging to each other. But Sarah wasn't done trying to insert herself back into my life. About 7 months after I left, the attempts became more aggressive and desperate. I started getting calls from unknown numbers at all hours. I stopped answering unknown numbers months ago, but they kept coming. Sometimes 5-6 times a day. I'd let them all go to voicemail. Most didn't leave messages. The ones that did were Sarah, her voice varying from sweet and apologetic to angry and accusatory. Alex, it's me. Please pick up, I just want to talk, or you can't ignore me forever, we need to talk about us. Or how can you move on like I meant nothing to you, you're heartless. The voicemails got increasingly unhinged. One night she left a 10-minute rambling message. Alex, I know you're there, I know you're listening to this. You probably think you're so much better than me now, don't you? You probably think I deserved everything that happened with Jake. Maybe I did, maybe that was karma for how I treated you. But you weren't perfect either, Alex, you were boring, you made me feel trapped, I needed excitement and you gave me routine. But I see now that routine isn't so bad. Stability isn't so bad. I took you for granted and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just call me back. Let me explain. Let me make it right. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. There was nothing she could say that would change my mind. Around this time, Emily noticed I was stressed. You've been on edge lately, she observed gently. Want to talk about it? I told her about the calls and messages. She listened, her expression growing concerned. That's harassment, she said. You should document it. Maybe talk to a lawyer about a restraining order if it continues. I don't think it'll come to that, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. She's desperate, but she'll give up eventually. Emily wasn't convinced. People who feel entitled to your time and attention don't just give up, Alex. Protect yourself. Her words proved prophetic. A week later, Sarah showed up at my old workplace. I transferred cities and offices, but she didn't know that. She walked into the building downtown, somehow got past security, probably by claiming to be my girlfriend bringing me lunch, and asked for me at reception. The receptionist, thank God, was someone I worked with who knew I'd transferred. Alex doesn't work here anymore, she told Sarah. You'll need to contact him directly. Sarah apparently lost it. Started demanding my new location, my new contact information, insisting she needed to reach me for an emergency. Security was called. She was escorted out. I only found out about this because my old manager called me. Alex, I don't want to alarm you, but your ex showed up here today making a scene. We didn't give her any information, but I thought you should know in case she tries other avenues. Thank you for the heads up, I said, genuinely grateful, and thank you for not giving her my information. Of course, he said, we take employee privacy seriously, but you might want to consider official measures if this continues. Between that incident and the constant calls, I decided Emily was right. I needed to document everything. I started keeping a log of every call, every voicemail, every attempted contact. I saved screenshots of social media messages from her various accounts. I compiled it all into a folder, just in case I needed it for a restraining order down the line. But then suddenly the contact attempts stopped. For 2 weeks nothing, no calls, no messages, no showing up places. I should have been relieved. Instead, I was suspicious. Sarah didn't give up that easily. Something had happened, but what I found out through Marcus, who'd heard through Jessica. Sarah had hit absolute rock bottom. She'd been staying with her last remaining friend, a woman named Ashley who she'd known since high school. Ashley had a 1-bedroom apartment and a full-time job and limited patience. Sarah had promised it would only be for a week while she got back on her feet. That was 3 weeks ago. Ashley came home from work one day to find Sarah drunk on her couch at 2 in the afternoon, her apartment a mess, her food eaten, her patience gone. Get out, Ashley had said, not yelling but firm. Sarah, I've tried to help you, but you're not helping yourself. You need to leave. Sarah had broken down, begging for more time, promising to do better, but Ashley stood firm. You've had months to do better. You're still wallowing, still blaming everyone else, still waiting for someone to rescue you. I can't do this anymore. leave. Sarah had nowhere left to go. All her friends were tapped out. Her family had drawn boundaries. She was broke, jobless, essentially homeless. She ended up in a women's shelter, sharing a room with 5 other women, following strict rules and curfews. It was a far cry from the exciting life she'd envisioned with Jake. The shelter had resources, counselors, job training programs, housing assistance, but you had to participate, had to put in effort. Sarah, from what I heard, was resistant at first. "This isn't my life," she told her caseworker. "This is temporary. I just need to get back on my feet and everything will go back to normal." "But what's normal?" the caseworker had asked. "You don't have a job. You don't have housing. You've burned bridges with friends and family. This is your normal now. What are you going to do about it?" That harsh reality apparently finally started to sink in. Sarah began participating in the shelter's programs. She started applying for jobs, real jobs, not just the creative gigs she'd been holding out for. She attended therapy sessions that the shelter provided. She started, maybe for the first time, to take responsibility for her situation. I learned all this through Marcus, who heard it through the grapevine, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no concern, just indifference. Sarah had made choices and faced consequences. She was dealing with those consequences. It had nothing to do with me anymore. I was busy building my life with Emily, getting closer to her family, integrating her into mine. My parents loved her. She's wonderful. My mom gushed after meeting her. So genuine and kind. We're really happy for you, Alex. You deserve someone like her. Emily and I were talking about the future, not in concrete terms yet, but in possibilities. She mentioned she'd always wanted to buy a house someday with a yard for a dog. I mentioned I'd always wanted kids, maybe 2 or 3. We'd smile at each other, both understanding we were talking about a future together without saying it explicitly. Work was going great too. 8 months after I'd transferred, I got the promotion my old manager had mentioned, senior developer with a significant raise and more responsibility. I was leading a team now, mentoring junior developers, making decisions that affected major projects. I was thriving in ways I never had when I was with Sarah, when my emotional energy was constantly drained by relationship drama. Emily took me out to celebrate the promotion. We went to a nice steakhouse and she insisted on paying despite my protests. "I'm proud of you," she said, raising her wine glass. "You've worked hard and you deserve this. Here's to your success and to many more good things coming your way." I clinked my glass against hers, feeling genuinely happy. This was what partnership felt like, celebrating each other's wins, supporting each other's goals, building each other up instead of tearing each other down. About 9 months after I left Sarah, I got an unexpected message. Not from Sarah, but from her sister Emily, Sarah's sister who I'd always gotten along with. I'd heard she'd kicked Sarah out, and I respected that she'd had to make that tough choice. She messaged me on Facebook. "Alex, I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out. I wanted to apologize for my sister's behavior. I know some of what happened between you two, and I know she treated you terribly. You didn't deserve that. I also wanted to let you know that she's finally getting help, real help. She's been in a program through a women's shelter, and she's actually making progress. I'm telling you this not to ask you to reconnect with her, but just so you know she's safe and working on herself. I hope you're doing well. You always seemed like a genuinely good guy, and I'm sorry my sister didn't appreciate that." I read the message several times, feeling a complex mix of emotions. I appreciated Emily reaching out. It took courage to apologize for someone else's behavior. I wrote back, "Emily, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate the apology, though you're not responsible for Sarah's choices. I'm glad to hear she's getting help, and I genuinely hope she's able to turn things around. As for me, I'm doing really well. I've moved on and I'm in a good place. I wish you and your family all the best." Her response came quickly. "Thank you for being gracious about this, and I'm really glad you're doing well. You deserve happiness." That was the last I heard from that side of things for a while. Life continued in the best possible way. Emily and I took a trip to Colorado for a week, hiking in the mountains, staying in a cozy cabin, disconnecting from work and phones, and just being together. One night, sitting by the fire pit outside the cabin, she turned to me and said, "I'm falling in love with you. Just thought you should know." My heart swelled. "I'm falling in love with you too," I said. "I know we haven't been together that long, but this feels right. It feels healthy and good and real." "It is all those things," she agreed, "and I want you to know I'm not going anywhere. Whatever we're building, I'm all in." I kissed her, the fire crackling beside us, stars bright overhead, and I thought about how different my life was from a year ago, how much better, how much lighter. We got back from Colorado and jumped back into our routines. Work, friends, hobbies, time together, time apart. The balance was perfect. I'd learned from my relationship with Sarah what not to do, how not to lose myself in a partner. Emily and I maintained our individual identities while building our shared one. We moved in together about a year after we started dating. Found a nice 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom for sleeping, the other set up as a shared office space since we both sometimes worked from home. Moving in together was exciting, not scary. We painted walls, picked out furniture together, made the space ours. Milo loved Emily and she loved him, which felt like the ultimate approval. Then came the event that would bring everything full circle. About a year and a half after I'd left Sarah, Marcus got engaged. He and his girlfriend Amy had been dating for 3 years, and he finally popped the question. He called me immediately after. "Dude, I did it." I asked her. She said, "Yes, I'm getting married." "Congratulations, man," I said, genuinely thrilled for him. "That's amazing. When's the wedding? They were thinking next summer, he said, and obviously you're invited, you and Emily both. I'm hoping you'll be my best man. I'd be honored, I said. They started planning immediately, setting a date for June, finding a venue, creating a guest list. Marcus called me a few weeks into the planning. So question, Sarah is friends with Amy's cousin, like good friends apparently. I had no idea until Amy started making her guest list. The cousin asked if she could bring Sarah. What do you think? My immediate reaction was no, but I took a breath and thought about it rationally. It's your wedding, Marcus. You and Amy should invite whoever you want. If Sarah being there is important to Amy's family, then invite her. I'm okay with it. I've moved on. I have Emily. Sarah can't hurt me anymore. Are you sure? Marcus asked, sounding doubtful, because we can totally say no. Amy will understand, I'm sure, I said. It's been a year and a half. I'm in a completely different place. If she's there, she's there. It won't affect my ability to celebrate your day. All right, if you're cool with it, we'll send her an invite. But first sign of drama, she's out. Security will bounce her if necessary. I laughed. I don't think it'll come to that, but I appreciate the backup. Months leading up to the wedding flew by. Work stayed busy. Emily and I talked more seriously about our future. We were looking at houses, thinking about buying something together, a real investment in our shared life. My parents were dropping hints about grandkids, which made us both laugh but also think seriously about timelines. Maybe in a couple years, Emily said, once we're settled in a house, once we're married. The word hung in the air between us, both of us smiling. Yeah, I agreed. Married, I'd been looking at rings. I hadn't bought one yet, but I was close. I wanted to propose sometime in the next 6 months, nothing too elaborate, just something meaningful. Maybe on a hike at the summit of one of our favorite trails with the view stretched out before us. The wedding approached. Marcus and Amy's big day was set for a Saturday in June at a beautiful outdoor venue, a park with gardens and a lake, ceremony by the water, reception in a pavilion. I'd been to the rehearsal dinner, met Amy's family, given a speech about Marcus and how happy I was for both of them. Emily looked stunning in her dress, teal-colored and elegant. You clean up nice, I told her. She laughed. You're not so bad yourself. The morning of the wedding, I helped Marcus get ready, keeping him calm as the nerves set in. You're sure about this? I teased as we fixed his tie. Amy's great, but it's not too late to run. He laughed. I've never been more sure of anything. She's it for me, man. I know the feeling, I said, thinking of Emily. The ceremony was beautiful. Amy looked radiant, Marcus looked overwhelmed with joy, and I stood next to him as his best man, feeling honored to be part of their day. I scanned the crowd during the vows and spotted Sarah sitting in the back. She looked different, thinner, more subdued, her hair shorter and styled simply. She was wearing a modest dress, nothing flashy. When our eyes met briefly, she looked away quickly. No drama, good. The ceremony ended, everyone cheered, and we transitioned to the reception. The party was in full swing by the time the sun started setting. Music, dancing, food, drinks, laughter. Emily and I were at a table with some of Marcus's college friends, swapping stories and jokes. I was relaxed, happy, completely at ease. Then I noticed Sarah making her way through the crowd. She was heading toward our table, her expression nervous but determined. My stomach tightened, but I stayed calm. Emily noticed my change in demeanor and followed my gaze. Is that her? She asked quietly. Yeah, I said. It's okay. Sarah reached our table, standing a few feet away. Hi, Alex, she said, her voice small. Can I talk to you for a minute? In private. I glanced at Emily, who gave me a slight nod, her hand squeezing mine supportively. I've got nothing to hide, I said to Sarah, my voice even. Anything you want to say, you can say here. Sarah glanced at Emily, then back at me. Her eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite read. Regret, maybe shame. Okay, she said, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything, for how I treated you, for taking you for granted, for all of it. I was selfish and immature, and I threw away the best thing I ever had. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry and that I've been working on myself. I'm in therapy. I have a job now, nothing glamorous, but it's honest work. I'm trying to be better. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw someone who'd been through hell. Someone who'd made terrible choices and was living with the consequences. And I felt nothing but indifference. No anger, no satisfaction, no urge to rub her face in how well I was doing, just nothing. I appreciate the apology, Sarah, I said calmly. I'm glad you're getting help and working on yourself. I genuinely hope you find happiness and figure out what you want in life. But you and I were done. That chapter closed a long time ago. Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. I know, I just needed to say it. She glanced at Emily. You're lucky, she said to her. He's a good man. Take care of him. Emily's response was graceful. I will. And I hope you take care of yourself too. Sarah nodded again, then walked away, disappearing back into the crowd. Emily turned to me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I'm more than okay. That didn't bother you at all, did it? She observed. No, I said honestly. A year and a half ago, maybe. But now she's just someone I used to know. You're my present and my future. Sarah's my past, and she can stay there. Emily kissed me right there at the table, a soft, sweet kiss that said everything we needed to say. The rest of the reception was perfect. I gave my best man speech and everyone laughed and raised their glasses. Emily and I danced to the slow songs and the fast ones. Marcus pulled me aside at one point. I saw Sarah talk to you. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, I said. She apologized. I accepted it, and that's that. I have zero interest in her life, and she knows it. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. Good, you deserve to be happy, man, and you clearly are. I am, I agreed, looking across the room at Emily laughing with Amy. I really am. The wedding wound down. Emily and I said our goodbyes to the bride and groom, congratulated them one more time, and headed to the parking lot. We drove home, her hand in mine, talking about the day, about how beautiful everything was, about how happy we were for Marcus and Amy. When we got home, we changed into comfortable clothes and sat on the couch with Milo between us, just enjoying the peaceful quiet. That was a good day, Emily said. It really was, I agreed. Seeing Sarah didn't even faze you, she observed. You've really moved on. Completely, I confirmed. She's irrelevant to me now, you're what matters. A few months after the wedding, Marcus mentioned that Sarah had apparently moved to a different city entirely. Fresh start, he said. Heard she got accepted in some art program, going back to school on a grant for low-income students. Good for her, I said, meaning it. I hope she makes something of it. She's out of the area, so you definitely won't run into her anymore, Marcus added. I shrugged. Wouldn't have mattered if she stayed. She's not part of my life either way. And that was the truth. Sarah had become a footnote in my history, a learning experience, a catalyst for growth, but nothing more. Emily and I got engaged 4 months after Marcus's wedding. I proposed exactly where I'd planned to, at the summit of our favorite hiking trail, down on one knee with the valley spread out behind me. She cried and said yes, and we sat up there for an hour just holding each other and talking about our future. The future we'd build together, based on honesty and respect and genuine love. We got married the following spring, a year and a half after I'd proposed. Small ceremony, just close friends and family, exactly what we both wanted. My parents walked both of us down the aisle, a sweet touch that made everyone cry. Marcus was my best man. Emily's best friend from college was her maid of honor. It was perfect, intimate, and meaningful, and full of love. During my vows, I promised to always communicate honestly, to never make Emily feel like she was anything less than my priority, to build a life with her based on mutual respect and shared dreams. She promised the same, her voice steady and sure. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, I kissed her and felt a completeness I'd never felt with Sarah. This was what it was supposed to feel like. Partnership, not ownership. Support, not dependence. Love that built up instead of tearing down. At our reception, giving my speech, I looked around at the people who'd supported me through the worst time of my life and celebrated with me through the best. I didn't mention Sarah by name, but I said, I used to think I knew what love was. I thought it was sacrifice and compromise and making yourself smaller so someone else could be bigger. But I learned, sometimes the hard way, that real love is two whole people choosing each other every day. Real love is respect and honesty and building something together, not one person carrying the weight while the other coasts. Emily taught me that. She showed me what partnership really means, and I'm grateful every day that I didn't settle for less than I deserved because it led me to her. Everyone raised their glasses. Emily was crying happy tears, and I knew without a doubt that I'd made the right choice that night almost 3 years ago when I'd packed up and left. The pain of that decision, the grief and anger and confusion I'd worked through had all been worth it to get to this moment. We honeymooned in Italy, 2 weeks of art and food and history. Emily sketched the architecture while I took photos. We got lost in tiny villages and found our way back. We talked about buying a house when we got back, about starting a family in a year or two. We made plans and dreams and promises. And through it all, I never once thought about Sarah. She'd once told me I was boring, that I didn't know how to live life. But I was living my life now, fully and joyfully, with someone who appreciated exactly who I was. When we got back from Italy, we dove into house hunting. Found a place within 2 months, a 3-bedroom craftsman with a yard and a garage and room to grow. We moved in and made it ours. Painted the nursery a soft yellow, even though Emily wasn't pregnant yet. Optimistic planning, she called it. Set up a home office for both of us. Planted a garden in the backyard. Adopted a dog from the shelter, a golden retriever mix we named Bailey, who got along great with Milo. This was home. Real home, not just a place I lived, but a place I belonged. I got another promotion at work, director of development now, leading multiple teams. Emily got recognized as Teacher of the Year at her school. We were both thriving in our careers, supporting each other through the stresses and celebrating the victories. We hosted Thanksgiving at our house, both our families coming together, filling the house with warmth and laughter and too much food. My mom pulled me aside while we were doing dishes. I'm so proud of you, she said. Not just for the career success, but for everything. You built a beautiful life. You found a wonderful partner. You didn't let what happened with Sarah break you. Thanks, Mom, I said, hugging her. I'm proud of me too, and I was. I'd gone from being a man who tolerated disrespect and emotional infidelity to a man who knew his worth and demanded to be treated accordingly. That growth, that transformation, was maybe the best revenge I could have had. Not hurting Sarah back, not gloating over her downfall, but simply living so well that she became irrelevant. About 3 years after I left Sarah, Emily got pregnant. We'd been trying for a few months, and when the test came back positive, we both cried tears of pure joy. We called our families, told our friends, started preparing in earnest. I built a crib with my dad, sanding and staining the wood with care. Emily nested, organizing and reorganizing the nursery, reading every parenting book she could find. We went to appointments together, saw the ultrasound, heard the heartbeat. It was a girl. We decided to name her Sophie. Sophie arrived on a crisp October morning after 12 hours of labor. I was there for all of it, holding Emily's hand, coaching her breathing, cutting the cord when Sophie finally arrived. When they placed my daughter in my arms for the first time, I felt a love so fierce it nearly knocked me over. This tiny person, this perfect little human, was mine to protect and raise and love unconditionally. Emily recovered like a champ. We navigated those first sleepless weeks together, trading off diaper changes and midnight feedings, supporting each other through the exhaustion. My parents came to help. Emily's parents came too. Friends brought meals and gifts and congratulations. And through it all, I kept thinking about how close I'd come to missing this. If I'd stayed with Sarah, if I'd convinced myself her treatment of me was acceptable, if I'd married her and had kids with her, my life would have been so different, so much harder, so much less joyful. Sophie grew, hitting milestones that made us cheer and cry. First smile, first laugh, first word, which was mama, much to my mock disappointment. I'd come home from work and scoop her up, dancing her around the living room while Emily made dinner. We were a family, solid and happy and full of love. This was everything I'd wanted when I was with Sarah, everything I dreamed of building, but it never could have happened with her. She never wanted this kind of stability, this kind of ordinary joy. She'd wanted excitement and novelty and constant stimulation. I'd wanted partnership and commitment and building something lasting. 4 years after leaving Sarah, I got a message on LinkedIn completely out of the blue. It was from Sarah herself. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. Alex, I know we haven't spoken in years and you probably don't want to hear from me. I'm reaching out because I wanted you to know that I finished my degree, art therapy. I got my certification and I'm working with at-risk youth now, helping them express themselves through art. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I've been sober for 2 years. I've been in therapy for 3. I've rebuilt relationships with my family. I have my own apartment, my own life, my own sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on external validation. I'm not reaching out to try to reconnect. I'm reaching out because I needed you to know that the work I've done, the person I've become, started with hitting rock bottom after you left. You leaving was the wake-up call I needed. I don't expect you to respond to this. I just wanted to say thank you for respecting yourself enough to walk away. It forced me to look at myself honestly for the first time. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Best, Sarah. I read it twice, then showed it to Emily. What do you think? She asked. I think she's finally grown up, I said. I think she's done the work and become someone better. Good for her. Are you going to respond? I thought about it. Yeah, I think I will. I wrote back. Sarah, I'm glad to hear you're doing well, truly. The work you've done sounds meaningful and I hope you're proud of yourself. I am happy. I'm married to an amazing woman, we have a daughter, and I'm living the life I always wanted. I'm glad we both found our paths, even if they went in different directions. Take care, Alex. Her response was quick. Thank you for responding. I saw photos of your wedding online through mutual friends. She looks lovely and you look genuinely happy. I'm glad you found what you deserved. That was the last communication we ever had. I didn't delete her from LinkedIn, but I didn't engage further either. We were two people who used to know each other, who'd hurt each other in different ways, who'd both moved on to better things. There was no animosity left, no unfinished business, just closure. 5 years after I'd walked out of that apartment with everything I owned packed into my car, I was living a life I'd once only dreamed about. Successful career, beautiful home, incredible wife, amazing daughter. We were talking about having another baby. Emily wanted to wait until Sophie was a bit older, maybe start trying when she turned 2. I was fine with whatever she wanted. We were partners in every decision. Marcus and Amy had kids too, 2 boys who were Sophie's age. We'd get together for playdates, watching our kids play while we caught up on life. Life was good. No, life was great. And it had all started with a decision I'd made in pain and clarity. If you don't like how I live my life, leave, so I did. Looking back now from the vantage point of stability and genuine happiness, I could see the path clearly. Sarah had been a lesson I needed to learn about boundaries and self-worth. Leaving her had been the catalyst for everything good that followed. The therapy, the self-reflection, the commitment to never again accepting less than I deserved. Meeting Emily, building a life with her, becoming a father. None of it would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd let myself be manipulated into thinking my feelings didn't matter, that I was being unreasonable for wanting basic respect and fidelity. Sarah's words that night, meant to shame me into compliance, had instead freed me. She'd given me permission to leave, probably never imagining I'd actually do it. But I had, and in doing so I'd taken control of my own narrative, my own future, my own happiness. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't in Sarah's downfall. It was in my rise. It was in building a life so full and joyful that her absence didn't leave a hole, it created space for better things. She told me I was boring, that I didn't know how to live, but I'd learned to live fully, just not with her. I'd found someone who valued stability, who appreciated consistency, who saw my steadiness not as boring but as a foundation to build dreams on. Years from now, when Sophie is old enough to understand, I'll tell her about making hard choices, about knowing your worth, about walking away from situations that diminish you, even when it's painful, even when you still have love for the person. I'll tell her that leaving isn't always running away. Sometimes it's running towards something better. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. Sarah had given me an ultimatum without realizing it would backfire. She'd expected me to beg, to compromise, to shrink myself further. Instead, I'd called her bluff. I'd taken her advice and left, and in doing so, I'd won in every way that mattered. So if you're reading this, wondering if you should stay in a situation where you're not valued, where your concerns are dismissed, where you're made to feel like the problem for having normal expectations, take it from someone who's been there. Leave, pack your things, write your note, and walk away. The pain is temporary. The peace is permanent. The life you build after is worth every hard moment it takes to get there. I left with nothing but my belongings and my dignity. I gained everything that actually matters.